Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 20th meeting of the Montgomery County House Delegation. Today on our agenda, we'll be receiving a briefing about the new UM3 Institute for Health Computing that's going to be established in Montgomery County, as well as taking up two bills. We are going to start with our briefing today on the Institute for Health Computing, and we have a number of guests with us this morning, including County Executive Mark Elrich, as well as some guests from the University of Maryland. And I am happy to turn it over to you all for the information this morning. Thank you for being with us. And whoever would like to start first.
You want me to speak? I'm the Dean of the University of Maryland School of Medicine and representing University of Maryland, Baltimore. Mark,
Madam Chair, I think we were going to have the county executive start the conversation and then move to Dr. Gladwin with University of Maryland, Baltimore. So,
that would be fine.
County executive.
Well, I would love to start the conversation, except my computer is completely screwed up and I can't get anything at this moment. I'm trying to get the stuff working, but I've been, for whatever reason, it hasn't got anything after 117 in my computer. I can kind of go off the cuff about this. That helps.
Go ahead, Mr. County Executive.
So where do you want me to start? In the beginning, or where we are, or how we got there?
Mr. County Executive, this is Tom. I think if you could just start at the beginning. I mean, we have about 8 minutes or so, and just kind of talk about how you got to this point and where we are.
Okay, so it's a familiar road I can talk about. We started right back after I got into office. I started a discussion about what we might be able to do around the White Flint area, and initially I brought in somebody to partner with the learners, and it went pretty well, except ultimately learners decided not to take on a partner. But in the process, I had spent a lot of time. I'd begun going to labs and companies in the county that were doing life sciences research. And what we heard pretty clearly was that there was a real lack of, they felt talent in the county, and also a lack of support from the university system. You know, what we knew and have kind of probably known for a long time was that, you know, despite Maryland being number 4, or Montgomery County being number 4 as a life sciences center, we were the only one in the country that wasn't anchored by graduate level research. And that was a big deal in terms of talent pool, people going through graduate school, working with companies, the kind of relationships that were built elsewhere don't always happen here, and didn't always happen here. And at the same time, a lot of the folks that I was meeting were talking about artificial intelligence. And when they explained what they were doing, they would explain it in the context of, you know, using AI to enhance their research capabilities, to be able to do things faster, to solve problems faster, and that, you know, what a boon it was to this. So these are a lot of scientists who did not grow up on AI. There are folks who learned it in the process of doing their work. And I got interested in seeing what we could do in terms of, you know, bringing that to Montgomery County in conjunction with life sciences to help, you know, boost the industry here and speed development here, and put something in Montgomery County that would enhance our attractiveness in terms of bringing companies here. So it was both internally useful for the companies that were here, and it was, you know, useful in terms of our goals of trying to bring more people to come here. I had a conversation with Lori Locascio. I met her when she was at the University of Maryland, and she wound up, she's now the head of NIST. And I went out there and talked with her about, you know, what we were thinking about. And originally we had talked about quantum, and her advice was not quantum, go with AI, because quantum's not ready yet. AI is, and AI is being used. And she linked me up with Dr. Varshney at the University of Maryland, and he called me up and said he'd like to meet with me, and came out and kind of did a presentation on what they're capable of doing. and said that he'd be interested in bringing a facility out to Montgomery County. Now, conversations with the University of Maryland literally took over 2 years, much as our conversations with WMATA to get this agreement that they're going to do a solicitation for a joint developer probably took 3 years. And so I was not able to say a lot other than to tell people roughly what I was working on, but I could never provide details because all the institutions wanted us not to provide details until they were sure they were going to make a commitment to do something. So I wasn't always able to share with people as much as I knew, but things, were definitely moving along. And we've got great support from Dr. Perman and Daryl Pines, and I think we've come a long way, and I think everybody recognizes the potential. If I was going to put it in a broader context, one of the things that we've observed, and if you get the Washington Business Journal, you can't help but observe it, is that UVA and George Mason are used by the state of Virginia to help drive economic investment. And so there's probably not a week goes by without a story about one or the other of those two institutions doing something in Northern Virginia that is going to be very attractive, useful, helpful to the private sector. And, Maryland has never really occupied that space. And it's kind of interesting, but, it's they've not had that kind of aggressive approach of how do we use our universities to focus on attracting, companies to Montgomery County or any place else. So one of the things, I talked a lot with the university was this difference between, Virginia's approach and the value that the university really brings beyond the pure science. It's, they can step into places where, the industry has needs and present themselves as, we're going to help address those needs and be in partnership with you. And that's what we are striving for. And I think that's where we've arrived. I'm really excited about this. I talk to people in life sciences in the companies up here. This is an area that, is, exploding. I think this is another thing where, a day doesn't go by where you don't read about more applications of artificial intelligence. And I, personally have met with scientists whose discoveries are being aided by one or more of their partners, being able to do the computational data that helps them understand what it is they need to do in terms of the physical processes they're going to bring to play. So this is, sort of where it started was about 3 years ago. We've been, pushing on it really hard. I'd say the pandemic was certainly not a friend to, being able to cooperate and work on things when everybody had other major things on their mind, which is totally understandable. But I think we've gotten to a really good place now. And Dr. Gladwin from UMMS system is something that we had not initially thought about, and the addition of them and the massive data and what they can do with understanding populations, which has applications for medicine. I mean, I think of it as if I knew when somebody got sick, how many things they got sick with, and oh, by the way, where did they live and what are the environmental factors that might be peculiar to the places they live. They're sitting on a treasure trove of information that could help advance medicine in the state, help people understand, causation and what kind of things we need to think about. Do we always attack the problem at the end with the treatment? What do we do environmentally, potentially, to take some of the risks away that people experience? It's a very interesting new world we've landed in, and I'm really excited about it. And it's taken a little while to get here, but like I said, I think we've arrived at a really good place. And we've made a commitment, 5 years at $5 million a year for rent on this facility, and $15 million for equipment, so they can get up and running as soon as possible. And I know WMATA thinks of them as a signature project that they would like to have on the metro station there as a signature for the metro station, which kind of aligns with our goal of turning White Flint North Bethesda into science center, life sciences, center that, somebody looks at and will eventually compare to a place like Kendall Square in Boston or some of the other places that are real centers. And the urbanism there is a real advantage. It's not an office park where things are strung out and you can't go out and meet somebody for coffee or walk down the street and get lunch. It's going to offer all those things that make it attractive, where scientists are going to want to be there. They're going to have lifestyle amenities that help enhance the quality of life for somebody working there. And I think, we're going to be able to put together one of the most desirable places in the country for people to do scientific research. So it's sort of kind of like the vision I've been, working off of, and the enhancement with the system has, I think, been really important and, and a real extra to this equation. And I'm excited. And I think we've got ourselves where we need to be to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, for the overview. We can turn now to our guests from the University of Maryland. We have Dean Varshni from the School of Computer, Mathematical, and Natural Sciences, Dean Gladwin of the School of Medicine, and the University of Maryland Medical System Vice President of Digital Transformation, Dr. D'Souza, who are all with us today. And then after our other guests speak, we can take questions from members of the delegation. Whoever would like to start from the university system is welcome to.
Dean Varshni, do you want to start off or should I?
Sure. Let me just give a brief overview of the AI data science work. But thank you very much for inviting us to speak. County Executive Ulrich, this was a really compelling vision that got us all very, very excited. And one of the things that has been going on that I just wanted to make you aware of is that University of Maryland at College Park is ranked very highly in AI as well as in augmented virtual reality visualization. In fact, we are ranked, according to some rankings, #2 in the nation. Right now, President Pines and I are currently visiting in San Francisco and the Bay Area. And they have a very interesting cluster of biotech companies along with the computer science companies. And I believe we can do much better. We are ranked higher. We have unprecedented access to the federal agencies in our regions that are not here in California at this time. And in addition, we are also looking at how artificial intelligence can help us make sense of large amounts of data, how visualization can immerse the scientists in this large amounts of data. And this is something which very few other places have these synergies the way we have in Maryland. So bringing all of this expertise and the skill set and leveraging the life science biotech companies in Montgomery County, we believe is the right thing to do, and this is the right time to do it. You might have all heard about how ChatGPT is able to make sense of large amounts of data on the natural language text from the internet. Now, imagine being able to do the same for large amounts of patient records that are in the UMMS with the help of the School of Medicine, Dean Gladwin. I think this would be really transformative. So I'm happy to answer any questions after we have had these initial overview from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Varshni. I'm Mark Gladwin. I'm the new dean. I've been here for 6 months of the School of Medicine based out of University of Maryland, Baltimore, right in Baltimore. We're thrilled about this program. This is a unique partnership supported by Montgomery County and Empower that will place 3 partners: the University of Maryland College Park, as you heard, experts in AI, quantum computing, and advanced mathematics, the biological scientists from the University of Maryland, Baltimore, were now ranked 25 in the nation in total funding and 9th among public universities. It's a research powerhouse, and we'll be bringing healthcare science to this team. And then the University of Maryland Medical System, which, as you'll hear from Warren D'Souza, now is pulling the healthcare record data from 2 million unique patients across 12 hospitals. And the idea is to build a learning healthcare system. There's going to be 4 pillars: real world data, real world evidence. This will draw the FDA, NIH partners to the space. a population health where we can reach out and touch through the electronic healthcare record our vulnerable patients to try to prevent pre-disease like hypertension and pregnancy, smoking, opioid substance use disorder, obesity, early kidney disease. And then the third piece will be embedded pragmatic clinical trials. And the fourth will be augmented virtual reality to help people negotiate healthcare of the future. And that's something Dean Varshney is a specialist in. We have a real special opportunity here because we serve a very diverse and vulnerable population across Maryland through UMS. As you'll hear a little of those demographics from Warren D'Souza. But this is a group that is being left behind by the AI revolution. And we have an opportunity to make sure that our algorithms are unbiased and that our care delivery for cancer prevention, disease prevention reaches across the state through this program. So the learning healthcare system's the future. Only a few places are at the cutting edge of this, like the University of California system. And we want the University of Maryland through this partnership with Montgomery County to lead in this space. I'll turn it over to Dr. D'Souza, who's a physicist and leads the University of Maryland data system in partnership with UMB.
Good morning. Thank you, Dean Gladwin. Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you to the Montgomery County Delegation for inviting us here this morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. And we are extremely grateful for your unwavering support of this important endeavor. I represent the University of Maryland Medical System, where I serve as the Chief Innovation Officer for the system. And the system's role in this partnership brings a rather unique lens in terms of the patient population we serve. More than 40% of the patients that we serve are non-Hispanic Black. In addition to that, we also serve a rather important constituency that resides on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And so this is very unique in terms of having a diverse patient population from which to draw on when we talk about AI and the notion of clinical trials, which is not commonplace amongst many other health systems. As Dean Gladwin mentioned, we have curated data from almost 2 million Maryland residents in our electronic medical record. The University of Maryland Medical System over the last decade has made significant investments in a common electronic medical record across all of our 12 hospitals. And what this allows us to do is harvest this data in a manner that is going to drive AI and machine learning algorithms in order to predict in advance disease states as well as potential efficacy of various diagnostics or therapeutics that will be developed from this endeavor. I also want to make a point about the security and access of data. We have developed very robust practices and protocols for harvesting this data. In most instances, the AI algorithms and machine learning algorithms that will be developed will be based on de-identified data. And we have very rigorous processes by which we protect the privacy of patients in the development of such algorithms. The availability of the diversity of data helps to eliminate bias that is sometimes commonplace in AI and machine learning algorithms. And Dean Gladwin alluded to this. Through this endeavor, and because of the uniqueness of the data set that we bring, we will be able to alleviate or mitigate against blind spots that such sophisticated algorithms may have by incorporating the variation of the patient populations that we serve. The data will be accessed in a de-identified manner by research investigators.
Thank you so much.
The data will be accessed by investigators in a de-identified manner through these robust practices. And once we have these algorithms in place, we will be able to offer the opportunity for participation in clinical trials, again, to a vast, diverse population that the University of Maryland Medical System serves within the state of Maryland. I'll pause there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
And I'll just add one other piece, and that is we see tremendous synergy with Shady Grove and the IBBR, because we also are going to bring computational firepower, so to speak, to molecule target design and to careers and training for students in computation and healthcare computing. So thank you so much for listening to us. I'm sure we went a little long, and we apologize for that.
Thank you all for your presentations. And I see Delegate Barbe has his hand raised. Let me just raise one issue for the benefit of the members of the delegation who, several of us did attend the announcement, the launch this fall, but I don't think it was mentioned today exactly where in the county you all will be locating. Could someone share that?
Sure. Tom, did you want me to speak up about that, or
Yeah,
I'll turn it to you?
that's perfectly fine. Dr. Gladwin, go ahead. Yes.
Sure. So we're still looking at, we just toured 3 sites with groups from Tom Lewis and UMCP and UMB. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of competition. People are eager to have us in those sites as an anchor program. We see this is going to really draw groups. There's one building that actually has NIH already at the top of that building. There's then 2 sites at the Pike and Rose. So our intention is sort of to work and negotiate with sites, but what we'd love to see is that we would occupy about 20,000 square feet with the intention of bringing 100 workers to the space, about 50 investigators and 50 students, and that we would then have companies that would align around us, perhaps FDA, perhaps NIH. This will be a real magnet. You know, we're sort of calling it a Silicon Valley on the East for healthcare computing. So we're in those discussions about space, and we're very open to options, and probably we would start. We've already been hiring faculty for this that would live there and work there, and so we're working on those space options.
Yeah, and if I could just clarify one thing, Madam Chair, just to be really clear, this is going to be located at the North Bethesda, formerly White Flint Metro Station. The expectation is it would be on that property as an anchor tenant for development of that station. And in the meantime, because that's not yet developed, as Dr. Gladwin said, we're looking at spaces nearby, and that would be for a 3 to 5 or 7 year lease, with the expectation that there would be a freestanding building of the university on the WMATA property afterwards. So thank you.
Thank you both for that information. Go ahead, Delegate Barbe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tom, you have a lot of experience in economic development, and you have a lot of experience with bottlenecks for growth and development. So I'd like you to comment on the whole issue of what I see as one of the biggest bottlenecks in Montgomery County, and that's the lack of affordable market rate housing for students, for scientists, and for average working folks. So I'd like you to address how that loops into all of these plans. And then I, Madam Chair, have another question that has to do with tax policy.
Thank you, Delegate Barbe. Yes, I think there's a real opportunity in this area around that White Flint, North Bethesda Metro Station for this specific development, but then also beyond that. I think WMATA is very supportive also of the idea of having added workforce housing. I think some research universities have done in addition to sort of the usual kinds of targets, where you're trying to find housing for teachers, firefighters, police. A lot of research universities have supported housing for graduate students, postdocs, fellows who are coming to town. And in Montgomery County, more than many places in the country, or most places in the country, you have a lot of fellows and postdocs coming through NIH and NIST and FDA. And so the idea would be to try to incorporate that idea to have housing that is affordable as a piece of this, but also to make it affordable to create an academic community really in that area. So.
I think I'll let it stop it there, and I'll take up my other issues with Tom Lewis offline. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Barbe. Do any other members of the delegation have a question?
Madam Chair, if I might,
Please.
might I add, Dr. Gladwin had mentioned that there may be as many as, almost half or almost an equal number of graduate students, interns, fellows, et cetera, almost an equal number to the number of researchers. And I think that's an area where there's a great partnership in this with universities at Shady Grove, where there are a lot of programs there and the opportunity. I know that Dr. Jarrell at University of Maryland, Baltimore, and Dr. Pines at College Park both have in mind creating some internships and support there to further the opportunities for those students at USG. I just wanted to add that.
Another thing I would like to add, Madam Chair, to follow up on Tom's very insightful remarks, is that we have been also in discussions with the Montgomery College, and we have a very nice pipeline of transfer students from Montgomery College that is working out really well at the University of Maryland, College Park. And we would also like to leverage that to have internships and experiential opportunities for the students from Montgomery College at this institute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that additional information. I don't see any other questions from members of the delegation. So thank you all again for being with us today and sharing this information. We appreciate the update.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Next,
Thank
we
you.
are going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to turn to our legislative work. We have two bills that were reported out this week by the Land Use, Transportation, and Public Safety Committee. And I will turn to Chair Love for the first bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Happy Friday. Happy to be here. So the first bill we have is MC 123, School Bus Monitoring Cameras Distribution of Fines. Little bit of background for folks. This is a bill that Delegate Moon has been working on, or this is a topic that Delegate Moon has been working on for several years. Where it comes from is on a 4+ lane highway, drivers driving in the opposite direction of a bus don't know that they have to stop if there's not a median in the road. So we have had a huge number of people getting tickets, expensive tickets, $250 for a violation. And you veterans may recall that last year we amended the bill and passed I believe it was originally MC 322, legislation requiring the county to compile a report on each school bus monitoring system and to examine the data related to the 10 highest offense areas. In the interim, Delegate Moon has really been working very hard and brought MC 123 to us. The committee also worked on this, and what we have is something we think is very reasonable. So the first thing I want to put on the table is the amendment. So what the amendment does is 4 things. It strikes the bill. It replaces it with language that makes it a statewide bill, which I'll explain in a second. It says that for that instance where it's a 4+ lane road, and the driver is driving in the opposite direction of the school bus and fails to stop, the first time is a warning. The second time you get that ticket. And one thing I wanted to mention, the recidivism rate for drivers who do this is extremely low. I think, and Delegate Moon can correct me if I'm wrong, it's like 4%. So that tells you it's really an education issue. And so we have been talking a lot with SHA and CDOT about increasing their education about this, this law. So the first time would be a warning. And then it also adds language saying that SHA has to come up with a safety plan for those highest incident areas. So with that, I would like to move the amendment and then happy to answer any questions that any folks have.
So move, Chair Lowe.
Second.
Okay, well, the motion was made by Delegate Kaufman, seconded by Delegate Shetty. Is there any questions or discussion on the amendment?
One thing I'd like to add, the reason that we need to make this a statewide bill is because the tickets are considered district court documents, and those need to be consistent across the state. We couldn't just make it a warning in Montgomery County, so it had to be a statewide bill. So procedurally, once if we pass this amendment and then we pass this bill, it will no longer be a delegation bill. It will be a Delegate Moon bill with the support of the Montgomery County delegation.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there any questions? Okay, before we vote, just a reminder, as you see, we have some questions and comments. Just a reminder that when we do vote, folks do need to be on camera if they want to be recorded as voting. Delegate Frazier Hidalgo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to be clear on the amendment, if this is a divided road, or a not divided road, Delegate Love.
So the law right now is if there is a median on a 4-lane road, you do not have to stop if you are in the opposite direction of the bus. If there is no median, then you do have to stop, and drivers don't know that. So it only applies to those roads where there is no median.
Okay. And is there any thought to the reason that the recidivism rate is so low is because once you get a $250 ticket, you learn a very, very big lesson?
There's a lot of thought to that, but the sense of the committee was that it's really unfair to penalize people like that when they really don't know about the law. So we're also really pushing for that education piece. And Delegate Moon, if you wanted to jump in about what your research shows as to where a lot of these tickets are falling, I think that might be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I hate to say this might not be the last you hear of this issue. This is just one in a series of many steps of conversation on this multi-year journey. But one of the biggest issues is that the tickets, because it's a uniform citation, are only in English. And so, and a high number of these are being, like the CASA headquarters is in the top 10, and a few Long Branch, heavily immigrant neighborhoods are in the top 10 also. And so, 70+% of the tickets were coming from these opposite lane scenarios. Very few were coming from behind the bus. But yeah, it's a good question. The original bill proposed to reprogram the fine revenue to actually build medians and enhance road safety, but every year that appears to be a second choice to some of these other options. So that's sort of where we are today.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're not talking about the divided road. We're talking about a regular road that is not divided, and issuing a warning to those people that go through a stop sign that's being presented by a school bus in the opposite direction, and their first time them getting a warning. The whole idea of a divided highway doesn't have anything to do with this. That's my understanding? Is that
correct? Because the way the law operates, if the road has a median, there's no ticket at all. It's sort of legally a de facto safer road for pedestrians. Yeah, so it's only the way that you would still get a ticket if you don't stop behind the bus on the first instance, and you would still and you would only get the warning if you're coming in the opposite scenario, there's no median, and it's at least 4-lane road. So it's really narrowed to try and get at a scenario that might be less than obvious.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yep.
And Delegate Moon, just to clarify further on that last bit where you were talking about the specifics, in the case of these 4 or more lane roads, those students are not crossing that road. Is that correct? They are getting off on the side of the street where they're being dropped off.
That is correct. And just to add a little bit more color to this, last year's legislation also called for examining the warning system, examining foreign language, and examining moving the bus stops. But when we checked back with folks this year, MCPS didn't want to move the bus stops. The police didn't want to implement a warning system, and the court said they couldn't implement foreign language. So I guess I just want everyone to understand that these are very slim options for proceeding with reform that are being presented here. But in past years, we've really tried to take a more holistic approach at this. So it's I urge, it's baby steps. So, believe me, this isn't, if you look at last year's bill, we were trying to do a lot more.
Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Chair Love. I had a question for you, Delegate Love. When you mentioned something about high incidence areas, I don't know if you explained, are they going to look at those areas? Are they going to be required to consider certain warning signs? What was that reference?
Sure, thank you. Those are the areas where there are the most of these tickets. So what Delegate Moon just mentioned, across the street from CASA, there's one on River Road as well. And they are to come up, let's see if I can get the language, to establish a plan to improve safety at bus stops where high number of violations occur. The plan must include the feasibility of creating medians at such locations. So that's what the plan would entail.
Delegate Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I had a point of, I guess it's a point of clarification or just a little bit of background and context. I think that will help this conversation. I think I heard Delegate Moon say sort of these are scenarios that are less than obvious. So I would like to disclose that there was a member of my household who learned this unfortunate $250 lesson, a young driver in my household who I love very much. And when reviewing the camera footage, it was clear what the incident was actually on a 4-lane divided with a median road with a gap in the median. So what you could see is multiple cars doing the same thing and getting the same ticket. It was maybe a 6-foot gap where the median existed and then there was no gap in the median. So the drivers really thought that it was a divided road, but that was generating these $250 tickets. So I know that that's one of the situations that's arising from personal experience.
Thank you, Delegate Kelly. Delegate Resnick.
Delegate Kelly asked my question. So ditto that.
All right. Delegate Mirku North.
Yes, I am loving this bill. It's definitely necessary. I had a couple questions. One, regarding the portion where you're asking SHA to have a plan. Is there a reason why we haven't specifically said including an educational component? Because the issue is education. Why aren't we asking SHA to specifically provide some educational materials for us as part of this plan to improve safety measures? And my second question is, was there any consideration to having the first offense be a lower fine? And if so, like, what are your thoughts on that? Just out of curiosity. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start, and then Delegate Moon, if you want to pick up, that would be great. With respect to the education piece, we had a long conversation, and they think that that's in the driver's ed stuff. And as sort of echoing what Delegate Kelly said, having a driver who is going through that process right now, who had no idea about this law, yes, education is key. So we certainly haven't let go of that piece. And that may be, as we heard from Delegate Moon, this issue might not be going away. That may be something that we circle back to. But when we had conversations with them, they said, oh, we do educate it. It's part of the test, et cetera, et cetera. So we do need to dig in more on that. Delegate Moon, do you want to jump in any more on that or on her second question?
Sure. Let me just say, I'm just highly skeptical that even the best education campaign is going to seriously address this issue. If you look at the top 10 list of where these tickets are generated, some of them are 8-lane state highways. They're high volume. Downtown Silver Spring has some of these stops. They're very high volume, high traffic, and you can hardly see across 3 lanes, in rush hour, when some of these buses are going. And so what I've tried to say from the beginning is that these shouldn't be undivided highways. Why do we have 8-lane highway stretches in these dense residential neighborhoods? They should be built far more walkable. And every year I've tried to get this bill to be written in a way that forces State Highway to start building safer environments on these roads. But every year the bill gets amended to not actually put the expensive engineering fixes on the table. So that's sort of where we are. Again, we're sort of taking the easier policy steps here. And I'm hoping that eventually we get to a place where we look at the data and start trying to figure out how we can make those specific neighborhoods safer. The number one location, to be clear, is that spot on River Road where the Ukrainian diplomat came back from war breaking out to be in safer United States ground and got killed riding a bike on River Road. That's the number one location here. And, so we've said over and again, this data should be used as a leading indicator for where there's unsafe road conditions. So hopefully we'll get back to that.
Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the points that I wanted to make were along the lines of what Delegate Moon just said. But let me just make a quick point and then ask the question. I do think it's just worth kind of highlighting whenever we're talking about this. And I think it is being highlighted that just these roads have been designed really, really poorly. And then we sort of come in with enforcement that's punishing, but not really looking at the structures that create the danger for pedestrians, for students, for the cars that are driving, for bikes, for sure. And so what you have is the communities that we're most underinvested in, and in our district, that's the Long Branch area in terms of housing, in terms of transportation, in terms of road safety, then are the communities that get fined the most. And so I appreciate that Delegate Moon's been trying to get this money to be put into the median issue, which is the development of medians, which is part of the solution. But I did think that I saw in the bill that there was some connection to where the fines are collected and where the investments in pedestrian safety happen. And I wanted to see if that has sort of stayed in it, or is there any connection between where there are higher fines and where money gets invested in the structural changes that are necessary for the safety that we're trying to create with these laws? Structural safety, I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that portion was struck. And sort of the compromise piece, if you will, is that SHA needs to come up with a plan for how to make those safer. But that money shifting portion of the bill was struck.
So can I ask a follow-up question? The
So the plan that the SHA is going to come up with is tied to the places with the high number of warnings and then tickets. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Definitely something to keep working on.
Thank you, Delegate Charkoudian. Any other questions, comments, discussion on the amendments that are before us?
Move the bill as amended, Madam Chair.
I believe we already have a motion on the floor, but thank you, Delegate
Previous
Harmon.
question, Madam Chair.
As a reminder, if you wish to be recorded as voting on the amendment, you do need to have your camera on. I will give everyone a moment for that. We will do this by voice vote. All those in favor of the amendments, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition or abstention? Okay, the amendments pass unanimously. Chair Love.
Move the bill as amended.
Second.
Okay, moved by Chair Love, seconded by Delegate Charkoudian. Any further discussion or questions on the bill? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition or abstaining? I believe that is unanimous. Thank you. Chair Love, the second bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our second bill is MC 10623, off-street parking near mass transit situations. So this bill prohibits Montgomery County District Council from adopting or enforcing a local law that requires the creation of new off-street parking for a residential development that is located within a quarter-mile radius of present or planned Metro or Purple Line station. You all may remember this was the discussion about requiring parking and how that increases the cost of housing. And, you know, if you live within a quarter mile of Metro, you may have done it because you don't have a car and you don't want to have a car. So that passed unanimously as well. There are no amendments. Move the bill, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved by Chair Love, seconded by Vice Chair Shetty. Any questions or discussion on this legislation? I think Delegate Queen would like to be recognized.
Sorry, I can't find my hand stuff. Okay, so I do remember some conversations about the parking and the costs and wanting to be near Metro and not needing a car. But I thought there were some conversations around the impacts to people who may be disabled or elderly as well, that that not having a car could be problematic. Was that not discussed, or was that considered at all in this?
I don't remember that, but this does not prohibit parking. This is just making sure they're not requiring parking. So you can still have parking, you can still have cars.
So this is requiring developers this is for developers, correct?
This is saying that the county council can't adopt or enforce a local law that requires the creation of new off-street parking. So when they're developing, they can't say that, you know, and Delegate Moon, please jump in if I'm messing this up here, that there has to be this amount of parking that goes along with this new development. But there can still be parking, there can still be cars. I feel like
So
I'm
refresh,
bumbling.
yeah, understood. Okay, refresh my memory on this, Delegate Moon. I know this is one of those bills that's been around for a while. The
Yeah,
idea
so
that
this is something that California, Buffalo, and a number of communities have done. There are generally parking requirements in the county that come with different types of construction. So if you have a single family home, it's probably going to be required to have a couple parking spots. Most studio or one bedrooms are required to come with a parking spot, a 2-bedroom, more than one spot. This is all like prescribed by the county. And so, states like California California said within a half mile of metro for residential or commercial, you can't require parking spots. Now, that doesn't mean people don't build parking spots, because there's demand for parking. So most people are going to build parking spots. But on the edges overall as a community, you might see, 1% fewer parking spots get built. I mean, I think the more common scenario is going to be underground parking. If someone's trying to build, a few stories, and the county comes in and says, well, you need 1 or 2 underground parking spots for every unit, and they have to dig for that, then that might add, quite a bit to the cost. So they either build fewer units, right, or it changes the project. It might change the financing, might change the viability, but it gets accounted for. So that's the bill in a nutshell. It's not going to ban parking. Fully expect parking. And as to your question about disabled and things of that nature, there are already parking regs for things like a senior center and things of that nature. And those numbers in current law are lower than the parking requirements for a non-elderly habited facility, for example. So they're already accounting for, they're trying to estimate themselves. Oh, they're going to need fewer parking spots for a building filled with seniors than they would for a general population building. And I guess this is saying you don't need to do all that. If you're next to if you're within a stone's throw of a heavy transit station, metro or purple line, that stuff is going to sort itself out. You don't need to say a 2-bedroom condo must have 2 parking spots, right next to a metro station. It requires an added cost. Yeah.
Do we have a sense of what that added cost is?
I've seen estimates from 10 to 150,000, and I think it depends on the land cost, and and if you're going underground and how complicated the ground is where you are, utilities and whatnot.
Delegate Moon, if I could add a little bit more context on that one. I can recall from when I was on the Rockville City Council and some projects that were before us where they had to do underground parking. And this was, 5-6 years ago. I believe those spots were like $40,000 to $50,000 per parking spot.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate Queen. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is maybe a bit speculative, but we have considered bills, and I don't think we passed last session a bill on requiring multifamily dwellings to provide electric charging stations, i.e. parking spots for electric vehicles. And I just wondered if a requirement like that were put in place, would this legislation prohibit the county from requiring something like that in conjunction with the development? I just want to add also that I support the bill. This is just a question. And as I said, it's kind of speculative. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Foley. No, it won't. Because as Delegate Moon said, it doesn't ban parking. So if you're going to have parking, you're still going to have that requirement. It's just saying you don't have to. Yeah.
Other questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, we have a favorable motion before us. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition or as abstaining? Okay, seeing none, that was unanimous. The bill passes. Thank you, Chair Love. I will note that the bill that I special ordered last week, MCPG 109-23, is still on hold while we work on some amendments. Otherwise, that finishes the business before us for today. Do any of the committee chairs have announcements about upcoming meetings or anything else? Chair Love.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Land Use, Transportation, and Public Safety Committee will be meeting Monday at 11 a.m. to consider MC 623.
Thank you. Any other announcements from other committees? Chair Chi?
As you know, for Economic Development Committee, I postponed the meeting by a week, but just stay tuned and look out for the email about the specific time. Thank you. We're working on some amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Lopez?
Thank you. We're still working on the time for our next meeting for Metro Washington area. So please be on the lookout in your email for updates.
Thank you. Any other announcements from any other members of the delegation? Seeing none, thank you all. We will see you on the floor at 11. Oh, Chair Love, did you have something? Nope. Okay, waving goodbye. All right. See everyone. Bye.